What if one small, innocent moment could change everything? What if a child's compassion could remind the world of the true meaning of kindness? Camera zooms in on Prince Louis, his laughter echoing through the peaceful grounds. The sound of his playful steps is juxtaposed with a sense of anticipation building in the background. On what seemed like just another afternoon at Kensington Palace, young Prince Louis was about to discover something that would touch not only his heart, but the hearts of millions. The puppy, wary and uncertain, took a few hesitant steps forward, its eyes locked on Louis's kind face. It sniffed the air, unsure whether to trust the young prince who was so different from the harsh world it had been through. But Louis's voice, soft and full of empathy, seemed to reassure the dog. Slowly, inch by inch, the puppy moved closer. It was as though the puppy recognized that this child, in his innocence, was offering kindness without any expectation in return. Louis's heart swelled with a mix of tenderness and determination. He crouched even lower, his knees pressing into the soft grass, careful not to startle the puppy. His small hand, trembling slightly from the excitement, extended through the wrought iron bars of the gate. "You don't have to be scared," he murmured, his words a gentle caress in the cool breeze that rustled the leaves around them. The puppy's tail twitched uncertainly, but instead of pulling away, it leaned forward and sniffed Louis's hand. It was a moment of fragile trust, and as the puppy's nose brushed against Louis's fingers, the child felt a wave of compassion wash over him. He had no idea where the puppy had come from or how long it had been alone, but he could see the fear in its eyes, fear that had no place in the warmth of Kensington Palace's gardens. For several long moments, neither of them moved. The sounds of the bustling palace seemed to fade away as Louis and the puppy shared a silent understanding. To anyone watching from a distance, it might have seemed like just another fleeting moment in a child's day, but for Louis it was much more. It was a quiet connection, a bond between two souls that had for a brief time been lost but had now found each other. Louis smiled softly as the puppy, sensing his gentle nature, took another step closer. He withdrew his hands slightly, allowing the puppy to come to him on its own terms. The dog's tail, still uncertain, began to wag a little, and its ears perked up as it realized this strange boy wasn't a threat. Louis continued to speak in hushed tones, his words carrying only the softest traces of excitement. "It's okay," he reassured. "You're safe now." At that moment, a soft rustle from behind broke the spell of silence. Louis turned to see a few palace staff members standing just a few yards away, watching the scene unfold. They knew better than to intrude, but their concern was evident. The young prince had a kind heart, but this was also a situation that required care and caution. Though their duty was to protect him, the staff could tell that Louis's connection with the puppy was something special, something that needed no interference. One of the staff members, a kindly older woman named Mrs. Langford, stepped forward cautiously. "Your Highness," she called gently, her voice soft yet firm. "Shall I fetch someone to see to the puppy?" Louis looked up, his face a mixture of determination and concern. He didn't want to leave the puppy alone, but he also knew that the dog needed help. He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving the small creature. "Yes, please," he whispered, "but be gentle, he's scared." Mrs. Langford smiled warmly at the prince's concern. "Of course, Your Highness," she said, her tone reassuring. "We'll take good care of him." As she turned to call for assistance, Louis remained crouched by the gate, his eyes fixed on the puppy, which now stood just within reach. He gently extended his hand again, this time with a little more confidence. The puppy sniffed it again, its nose brushing against the prince's skin, and for a fleeting moment, Louis felt as though he and the dog shared a secret, a bond formed in the simplest of acts, kindness. The staff arrived moments later, 2 royal veterinarians among them, equipped with everything they would need to care for the little dog. The puppy, still a little wary, backed away slightly at the sight of the unfamiliar people, but Louis remained calm. He stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving the puppy's small form. He felt an overwhelming urge to protect this tiny creature that had somehow found its way into his life. "Don't worry," Louis reassured the dog softly, as the veterinarians carefully lifted it into their arms. "You'll be okay." The staff, now fully aware of the emotional connection between the prince and the puppy, proceeded with the utmost gentleness. They carefully examined the puppy, cleaned its fur, and ensured it was comfortable, despite its rough appearance and the clear signs of neglect. The puppy showed no signs of aggression. It was simply a scared little animal, longing for safety and care, just as Louis had longed for a friend to play with. As the puppy was brought inside the palace, Louis followed closely behind, his eyes wide with concern. "Can I stay with him?" he asked, his voice filled with a child's earnestness. Mrs. Langford smiled again, her heart touched by the prince's kindness. "Of course, Your Highness," she said. "You may stay with him as long as you like." Louis nodded gratefully, and with the puppy in tow, he entered the warmth of the palace. As he watched the puppy being settled in a quiet corner, Louis felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had done something important today. He had shown the puppy kindness when no one else had, and in that small, quiet act, he had made a difference. The days that followed were filled with small moments of joy and wonder. Louis, now deeply attached to the little dog, spent hours playing with him in the royal gardens, teaching him to chase after a ball, run in the grass, and wag his tail with delight. The puppy, who had once been scared and alone, now found comfort in the prince's company. Though the world outside Kensington Palace moved on with its usual pace, For Louis, the connection with his new friend, whom he had named Jasper, was something that would stay with him forever. It was a lesson in empathy, in kindness, and in the power of simple gestures to heal wounds that words could never reach. And as the royal staff and family went about their duties, they too were reminded of the innocence of childhood and the transformative power of love. In the end, Jasper became more than just a pet. He became a symbol of Louis's compassionate heart, a reminder that even the smallest among us have the power to bring light into the world. And as Louis continued to grow, the memory of the puppy would remain with him, teaching him that true kindness is not measured by grand gestures, but by the simple, quiet moments we share with those in need. The quiet afternoon stretched on, and time seemed to slow as the bond between Louis and the puppy deepened. The royal staff, observing from a respectful distance, exchanged knowing glances. Though they were accustomed to the formality and grandeur of palace life, there was something profoundly moving about this simple interaction. Here was a moment that transcended the usual rituals of royalty, a reminder that no matter the status or title, kindness was a language understood by all. Louis's small fingers were outstretched, his hand steady despite the anticipation building in his chest. The puppy, still hesitant but now sensing the prince's genuine intent, took another cautious step forward. Its eyes, wide with uncertainty, finally met Louis's, and for the first time the dog's tail gave the faintest wag. The small movement, though subtle, felt like a triumph, and Louis smiled softly, a glow of pride lighting up his young face. It was as if the puppy had chosen him and in doing so had given him a gift, a quiet trust that spoke volumes. In that moment, the world outside the royal garden seemed distant, almost irrelevant. The soft murmur of palace life faded into the background as Louis's focus remained solely on the puppy. His young heart, untainted by the complexities of the world around him, knew only one thing: the animal was in need and he had the power to help. His mind may not have fully understood the weight of that responsibility, but his actions were the purest form of empathy, instinctively driven by a desire to care. The palace security team, while remaining vigilant, understood the significance of what they were witnessing. They had been trained to shield the young royals from harm, but here they were witnessing something equally important, a reminder that even in a world filled with protocols and duties, the simplest acts of kindness could have the most profound impact. It was a rare, fleeting moment that reminded them of the humanity that resided beneath the layers of royal tradition. Minutes passed and Louis, unwavering, continued his quiet interaction with the puppy. His voice, though soft and barely audible, filled the space around them, wrapping the two of them in an atmosphere of warmth and calm. "It's okay," he whispered, his words a balm for the puppy's frazzled nerves. "You're safe now." And as if in response, the puppy took another step forward, its trembling body now more steady, its eyes more trusting. At that moment, Mrs. Langford, the elder palace staff member, stepped forward with a gentle smile. Her presence was reassuring, a quiet reminder that even in the most delicate of situations, the royal staff was there to offer support when needed. But she knew better than to rush in too quickly. This was a moment for Louis and the puppy to share uninterrupted. "Your Highness," she called softly, ensuring that she didn't disturb the connection between the two. "Shall I fetch someone to assist?" Louis, still with his eyes on the puppy, nodded slowly, his voice a whisper. "Please, but be gentle with him, he's scared." The staff member nodded in understanding, retreating slightly to make the necessary arrangements. There was no rush. Louis's tender care for the puppy had already begun to work its magic. The puppy's tail was now wagging with cautious enthusiasm, and it looked up at Louis with an almost grateful expression, as if recognizing that the prince was not just a figure of royalty but a true friend in that moment. As the staff called for the veterinarians, Louis remained by the gate, still crouched down in front of the puppy. His gaze softened and he whispered words of comfort to the dog, not because he felt it was necessary, but because it was the only thing that felt right. His small hand continued to reach through the bars, his fingers brushing gently against the puppy's fur. When the staff arrived with the veterinarians, they took over with care, handling the puppy with the same gentleness that Louis had shown. They examined the small creature, ensuring it was treated with the utmost respect. But even as they worked, Louis remained close, watching intently, his concern for the puppy unwavering. It was clear that the bond between them had already formed, and the prince's attachment to the dog was not just out of pity, but from a genuine, heartfelt connection. The staff worked quickly and efficiently, cleaning the puppy and tending to its needs. But Louis, though relieved that the puppy was receiving the care it required, did not stray far. He stayed beside the animal, a silent guardian, his young heart filled with a mixture of pride and tenderness. He had made a difference today, and though the world around him would soon return to its usual pace, this small act of kindness would remain with him, and with the puppy for a long time to come. As the puppy was carefully carried inside the palace, Louis walked by its side, his footsteps light and determined. The veterinarians assured him that the little dog would be well cared for, but Louis's eyes lingered on the small creature, unwilling to let go just yet. He had found a friend, a companion who, like him, had been in need of comfort and care. In the days that followed, Louis spent much of his time with the puppy, now named Jasper. He would often sneak away from his royal duties to play in the gardens, throwing a ball for Jasper to chase or simply lying on the grass beside him, talking softly about his day. And while the palace continued to bustle with the usual royal affairs, Louis's heart had found a quiet, comforting rhythm in the presence of his new companion. Jasper, once a trembling, fearful creature, had blossomed under Louis's care. His coat was cleaner, his eyes brighter, and his spirit stronger. The puppy had found a home, and in return, Louis had learned an invaluable lesson: that sometimes kindness could heal more than wounds. It could form lasting bonds and transform lives. And so, in the heart of Kensington Palace, amidst the weight of royal tradition, a small puppy and a young prince had forged a connection that would stand the test of time. It was a reminder that even in the most formal of places, compassion could flourish, and that sometimes the simplest acts, like a kind word, a gentle hand, or a soft whisper, had the power to change the world. As the days passed, the bond between Louis and Jasper only deepened. The puppy, once timid and uncertain, seemed to blossom under Louis's care. There was something comforting about the quiet companionship between them. Jasper would follow Louis everywhere, trotting by his side during their walks in the gardens, or curling up by his feet while he worked on his sketches. Louis, with his natural curiosity, would ask Jasper questions, though he knew the puppy couldn't answer. But that didn't matter. Louis found solace in the quiet moments they shared together, as if the puppy understood him in ways no one else could. Catherine often observed this gentle connection, her heart swelling with pride and affection. She saw her son in a new light, so sensitive, so full of empathy for a creature that had once been a stranger to him. It was a reminder of the kindness that still existed in a world often filled with responsibilities and expectations. Louis's love for Jasper was untainted by the constraints of royalty, and Catherine couldn't help but marvel at how her son had taught her, once again, the importance of simple kindness and unconditional love. One afternoon, as the soft golden light of the late afternoon sun filtered through the trees, Louis and Jasper sat together in a peaceful corner of the garden. Louis was once again sketching his new friend, his tiny fingers carefully outlining the contours of the puppy's form on the page. Jasper, for his part, seemed content just to lie there, his eyes half closed, basking in the warmth of the sun. The serenity of the moment was palpable, and for a while it felt as though the outside world had melted away. Catherine joined them, sitting on the grass beside her son. She looked down at the two of them, a young boy and his dog, and a soft smile spread across her face. It was a picture of innocence and peace, a moment in time that she would cherish forever. "He's a lucky puppy," she said softly, watching as Jasper raised his head to nuzzle against Louis's hand. Louis looked up at her with a beaming smile. "I'm lucky too," he replied, his voice filled with quiet certainty. "I never knew I could love a dog this much." Catherine's heart melted at the sincerity in his voice. "It's beautiful, Louis," she said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You've given him a second chance at life." Louis nodded, his eyes glimmering with emotion. "He's my friend, and I'll always take care of him." The royal staff, too, couldn't help but notice the transformat. Iron in Jasper, the puppy, once thin and frightened, had blossomed into a playful and energetic dog. His coat had grown shinier and healthier, and he had a newfound confidence. Louis's care and attention had worked wonders on him, and the staff couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth watching the prince and his puppy together. In the weeks that followed, Jasper became a beloved member of the royal household. He was always there for Louis, whether during quiet moments of reflection or active play in the garden. The royal family would often be seen strolling through the grounds with Jasper running alongside them, a part of their family now. His presence added an extra layer of warmth and joy to the palace, a symbol of the simple pleasures that life had to offer. For Louis, the experience with Jasper was a lesson in love, patience, and loyalty, lessons that would shape him as he grew older. He had learned that kindness could change the world, and that even the smallest of gestures could have a lasting impact. With Jasper by his side, he had discovered the joy of selfless love and the beauty of unconditional companionship. As time passed, the bond between Louis and Jasper remained unbreakable. The puppy who had once been a stray had found a home in the heart of the royal family, and in the heart of a young prince who had taught them all the true meaning of kindness. In the midst of royal life, with its ceremonies and expectations, this simple love for an animal reminded everyone of the deeper values that truly mattered. Louis didn't answer right away, his gaze still fixed on the scene outside the window. He watched as Mrs. Turner, with a smile full of relief and joy, led Jasper away from the palace gates. The dog, tail wagging vigorously, looked back at the boy he had come to know as a friend, his eyes bright with recognition and happiness. It was a moment that tugged at Louis's heart, and despite the warmth of the reunion, he couldn't help but feel a deep ache of loss. Catherine stood beside her son, sensing his emotions without needing to ask. She knew how hard it must have been for Louis to let go of something he had grown so attached to, even if he understood the circumstances. The complexities of love and loss were lessons that children learned in pieces, and today, Louis had learned one of life's more difficult truths. "You know, darling," Catherine said softly, kneeling down beside him, "sometimes love means doing what's best for someone even if it means letting them go. And Jasper will always remember you. He won't forget the kindness you showed him." Louis nodded slowly, his eyes still glued to the scene outside. He could feel his mother's warmth beside him, her presence grounding him in the moment. After a few long moments, he finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "I'll miss him," he whispered, "but I'm happy he's with Mrs. Turner. She needs him more than I do." Catherine smiled, her heart swelling with pride for her son. He had shown such maturity and understanding in the face of something that would have been difficult for most people, let alone a child. It was a moment that would stay with him forever, a lesson in selflessness, in understanding the bigger picture, and in letting go when the time came. "I'm so proud of you, Louis," she said, her voice full of love. "You gave Jasper a second chance, and in return he gave you a memory you'll always carry with you." Louis finally pulled his gaze away from the window, turning to look at his mother. His small face, though still touched by sadness, held a quiet sense of acceptance. "I'm glad he's happy," he said, his voice stronger now, "and maybe one day we'll see him again." Catherine kissed his forehead gently, brushing a few strands of hair from his face. "Who knows, maybe one day he'll come to visit and you can see how well he's doing. But for now, remember that you gave him something precious, your love." As they stood together, the bond between mother and son felt even deeper, strengthened by the shared understanding of what it meant to love, to care, and to let go. Louis had taken his first steps toward the complexities of life, where happiness and sadness often intertwined, but he had done so with the kind of grace and compassion that would guide him in the years to come. The staff, too, watched quietly from a distance, their respect for the young prince growing. They had seen firsthand the depths of his heart, and they understood the lessons he had learned. There would be many more moments in Louis's life where he would be faced with choices, challenges, and moments of joy and sorrow. But today he had learned that love wasn't about possession, it was about care, compassion, and knowing when to let go. And as Mrs. Turner and Jasper left the gates of Kensington Palace, the staff could only wish the little family well, knowing that they had witnessed something truly special. The power of kindness and the beauty of a bond formed in the most unexpected of circumstances. Catherine's heart swelled with pride as she listened to Louis's words. She knew that in that moment her son had come to understand something profound, something that many adults struggled to fully grasp. Louis had learned that love wasn't about keeping something for yourself. It was about offering care, kindness, and the courage to let go when it was needed. "Sometimes the right thing isn't the easiest thing," Catherine said gently, her voice laced with tenderness. "But you did it, Louis. You showed a kindness that the world will remember." Louis nodded, his gaze still lingering on the now empty road where the car had disappeared from view. His small frame seemed a little more thoughtful, his spirit a little more mature. It was as though in just a few short days he had been handed a lesson far beyond his years, one that would stay with him forever. As the evening wore on, the quiet whispers of the day's events began to echo through the palace halls. What had started as an innocent act of empathy had turned into a story of extraordinary compassion. The press, ever eager for a royal narrative, seized on the tale, and soon the world was captivated by the image of a little boy and his puppy. But what struck the public most wasn't the fact that a royal prince had shown compassion, it was the simplicity and purity of it all. It was a story that didn't involve politics, wealth, or the trappings of fame. Instead, it was a story of kindness, a story of a child's genuine care for a creature in need. In a world so often focused on ambition and success, the story reminded people of the power of tenderness and the impact of even the smallest act of love. As Louis lay in bed that night, his thoughts wandered back to Jasper. He could still hear the sound of the puppy's joyful barks, feel the soft brush of its fur against his hand. Though his heart ached from the loss, there was also a quiet comfort in knowing he had done something truly good. He had helped Jasper find his way back home, and in return he had found a piece of his own heart. The next morning, as Catherine kissed him goodnight before he went to school, Louis whispered, "Maybe one day we'll see Jasper again, Mom." Catherine smiled, her heart full. "Perhaps, darling, perhaps." And though their paths may never cross again, Louis would always carry with him the lesson that love wasn't something to be hoarded. It was something to be given freely, even when it meant letting go. In that moment at Kensington Palace, a small act of kindness had echoed far beyond the walls of royalty, reminding everyone that in a world full of noise and chaos, sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply be kind. In the end, it wasn't the titles or the palace that mattered. It was the simple act of kindness, of helping a lost soul find its way home. And maybe, just maybe, we can all learn from Louis's quiet act of love. Camera focuses on Louis looking out the window, his expression thoughtful but at peace. What small act of kindness can you do today? Don't wait for a grand moment. Sometimes the most powerful change starts with one simple step.